Where is God when I feel alone? That question, I know, it weighs heavy. Maybe you've thought about it more times than you'd like to admit. Because if God is always with me, why can't I feel Him? Why does it seem like He disappears right when I need Him the most? It's hard, and loneliness, when it arrives, brings so many doubts along with it. It's not just the emptiness, but that nagging feeling that we've been forgotten, as if our prayers never made it past the ceiling. I understand. I felt like that too. And you know, it's normal to feel this way. But what we feel isn't always the truth. Sometimes, silence doesn't mean absence. Sometimes, in the moments when it feels like we are utterly alone, maybe that's when God is closest. It doesn't seem easy to believe, I know. But what if it's true? Maybe you're thinking, but how can God be close when all I feel is this emptiness? It's a fair question. When we're in the middle of pain, it screams so loudly that it drowns out everything else. That's when we start doubting. Not just God, but even ourselves. I know what it feels like to be in that place. Loneliness has a peculiar way of creeping in. It comes uninvited, making us question everything, including our faith. Does God really care about me? Is He even listening? Or am I truly alone in this journey? These questions can feel like a burden, and it's normal to carry them from time to time. The truth is, in those moments, everything feels like it's working against us. We look around and see no way out. We try to hold on to something, a word, a prayer, a sign, but all we find is silence, and in the silence doubts grow, because our minds start equating being alone with being forgotten. But I want to invite you to consider something. Does silence really mean that God isn't there? Or is it possible that we're so consumed by the pain that we can't notice the subtle ways He's working? Think about this for a moment. When you're lost in your thoughts, walking a seemingly endless path alone, is there truly no one there? Or are you so focused on the emptiness that you fail to see who's walking beside you? Many times God's presence doesn't manifest the way we expect. It's not always an instant miracle, an audible voice, or a visible sign. Sometimes it's as simple as a sudden sense of peace that washes over you, even when everything is falling apart. Other times it's a comforting word from someone who has no idea how much you needed to hear it. And if we think about it, even Jesus experienced loneliness. On the cross, He cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46. Isn't it encouraging to know that even He, in His humanity, felt the weight of separation and pain? But what happened after that? He wasn't abandoned. God was there, fulfilling a greater purpose that, at that moment, may not have been visible. It's the same with us. When we look at our lives only through the lens of what we're feeling right now, it's hard to see the bigger picture. But what if what feels like loneliness is actually God's silent care? What if, even without realizing it, He's carrying you in His arms? You might ask, but why can't I feel that? It's a valid question. Pain has a way of blinding us to even the simplest truths. It makes us forget that God never promised we wouldn't face hardship. He promised we wouldn't face it alone. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Psalm 23:4. Here's the important part. Trusting God doesn't always mean feeling His presence in a tangible way. Trusting means knowing that even when there are no visible signs, He is there. Not because you've earned it, but because He promised. I remember a time in my life when everything seemed to be falling apart. I felt abandoned, as though my prayers were hitting the ceiling and coming back unanswered. But years later, looking back, I realized something I couldn't see at the time. In every detail, even the smallest ones, God was taking care of me. You know that friend who unexpectedly sends you a message asking how you're doing? Or the moment you read something that seems to speak directly to your heart? Those small gestures, they're not coincidences. They're reminders that God is there, even if it's in a quiet way. The thing is, we often look for grand signs, but God works in the small things. He doesn't need a storm or a spectacle to show He's present. Sometimes the greatest miracle is simply the strength to take one more step, even when it feels impossible. And maybe, just maybe, what you're going through right now isn't a sign that God has left you, but an opportunity to trust Him more deeply. Because it's in moments of weakness that we realize we can't walk this path alone, and it's there that God meets us, right where we are. So, if you're feeling alone right now, I want to remind you of something. Your feelings are valid, but they don't define reality. God is closer than you think. Even if you don't see or feel Him, He's there, caring for you, holding you, and waiting for the right moment to show you that you've never been alone. And the most beautiful part of it all, He doesn't turn away when we're weak, doubtful, or afraid. He meets us in our humanity, just as we are. God is like a father who never stops loving his child, no matter how far they think they've gone. If you can open your heart, even just a little, you might realize that God is already speaking to you. Maybe not in the way you expected, but in the way you need most. Maybe right now you're thinking, all of this sounds beautiful, but it's easy for you to say. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't know the size of my problem or my pain. And you're right, I don't. I don't know the depth of what you're feeling or the weight you're carrying. Do you know what the greatest pain in the world is? Some people say it's kidney stones. Others say it's the pain of childbirth, a toothache, or a broken heart. But in reality, the greatest pain in the world is the one each person feels as the greatest. I'm not here to judge anyone's pain. I know my own pain, and it's been enough to break me more than once. That's why I try to approach others' pain with empathy. I understand that when we're hurting, the pain can feel all-encompassing. It dominates our thoughts, feelings, and even our perspective. I'm reminded of a passage from the book The Shack by William P. Young. In it, God says to Mac, "Will you at least consider this? When all you can see is your pain, perhaps then you lose sight of me." That's so profound. When we're so focused on our pain, it's easy to lose sight of everything else, even God. This reminds me of Peter. Remember that scene when he walked on water toward Jesus? As long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he walked. But the moment he looked away, noticing the sea, the wind, and the storm around him, fear took over. He began to sink. Pain works the same way. When we focus entirely on it, it grows larger and larger until it's all we can see and feel. And I know it's hard, but what if you tried, even just a little, to shift your focus? This isn't about pretending the pain doesn't exist. It's about looking to the one who can sustain you through it. God doesn't ignore your pain. He sees it. He sees you. And He's ready to walk with you, even over the most turbulent waters. I imagine that, even now, you might still be thinking, but I really do feel alone. It feels like God has left me. And I understand. That feeling is so real, so strong, it can feel suffocating. But can I share something that left a mark on my life? When I was a child, I read the poem Footprints in the Sand. In it, someone is walking along the beach with God. And as they look back, they see two sets of footprints in the sand. But during the hardest moments of their life, there's only one set of footprints. Feeling abandoned, the person asks, "Lord, why did you leave me during the most difficult times?" And God answers, "It was then that I carried you." That stuck with me for a long time, though I confess I forgot it during some of the harder moments of my life. In my teenage years, when I went through depression, it seemed impossible to believe that God was with me. It was only years later, looking back, that I realized He wasn't just there, He was sustaining me. Now I invite you to think about a time when you saw or felt God in your life. A moment of peace, joy, or love. Maybe it was something small, but remember the details. How it made you feel. Write it down. Hold it in your heart. And can I remind you of something that's obvious but easy to forget? God is here, right now. He hasn't left you, and He never will. Even if you can't see or feel Him, He's by your side. Or maybe at this very moment, He's carrying you through it all. Look to Him. Trust Him. He has been and always will be with you. If God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:31.